You were my first students. My family. I wanted you to be free. Help build a world where mutants could live however they wish, safe and without fear. My X-Men.
All right, movie sentries, let's talk about X-Men 97, Gambit, and the version of this story that almost happened, but probably never will. For the first minute, imagine this. One of the most beloved X-Men characters appears to meet his end in Season 1. Fans are still processing it. Then suddenly, the former showrunner comes out and says, that wasn't even close to the plan. Not only was Gambit supposed to come back, he was lined up to lead an entire season, pull off a cosmic heist, and step into one of the wildest X-Men arcs ever written. And now, according to the man who planned it, we may never see it. That's where this story gets complicated. When X-Men 97 premiered on Disney+, it wasn't just another nostalgia revival. It was a direct continuation of X-Men the Animated Series, the iconic run that aired from 1992 to 1997, hence the 97 in the title. For longtime fans, this wasn't a reboot, it was unfinished business. Behind the scenes, the creative engine driving the first two seasons was Beau DeMayo, who served as head writer and showrunner. But right before Season 1 even premiered, Marvel fired him. The reasons were never fully detailed publicly, and that silence has fueled speculation on all sides. What we do know is this. DeMayo's name was later removed from the credits for Season 2, which is currently scheduled to arrive in 2026. Despite that, he has remained very vocal on social media, sharing insights into the long-term roadmap he originally had for the series, and one of the biggest reveals centers on Gambit. In a post on X, DeMayo responded to a question from Simon Gallagher about character prioritization, specifically why Wolverine seemed to be pushed down the roster. That's when DeMayo dropped this quote word for word. Gambit's season was Season 3, where I was going to adapt his arc in Age of Apocalypse, where he would be assembling a team at the behest of Magneto to find and steal the Macran crystal. That single sentence lit up the fanbase, because if you know X-Men lore, you know how big that is. The Macran crystal isn't just a MacGuffin, it's a reality-altering artifact tied to the Shi'ar Empire, alternate timelines, and some of the most cosmic, high-stakes X-Men stories ever told. Pair that with Age of Apocalypse, one of Marvel's most iconic alternate universe arcs, and suddenly Gambit isn't just the charming thief on the sidelines, he's the centerpiece. According to DeMayo, Season 3 was designed to be Gambit's moment, but that wasn't the only eyebrow-raising part of his explanation. DeMayo also addressed why Wolverine, arguably the most popular X-Man of all time, was being intentionally scaled back. His response was blunt. This is not the Wolverine show. It's time to move on. He explained that his approach was inspired by a storytelling model he learned from Julie Plec from projects like The Vampire Diaries, the originals, where different characters rotate into the spotlight each season rather than one dominating the narrative. From his perspective, this wasn't about sidelining Wolverine permanently, it was about balance, and that philosophy shaped the entire structure of the show. DeMayo broke the cast into tiers. At the core was what he referred to as the Gold Team. Storm, Cyclops, Magneto, and Jean Grey. These characters were meant to carry the emotional and thematic spine of the series. Next came the secondary players, Professor X, Rogue, Wolverine, Morph, Jubilee, and Cable. And then there was the Red Team, where Gambit initially sat, more of a support role. That last part raised some eyebrows, especially among Gambit fans. But DeMayo was clear, that placement wasn't permanent, it was strategic. Gambit, in his words, would eventually get his season. DeMayo even described this structure as a mandate both fought for and proven by my team. In other words, this wasn't a random choice. It was a deliberate creative direction, one that had buy-in internally, at least at the time. Now, here's where things get more divisive. One of DeMayo's stated goals with X-Men 97 was to modernize the franchise's social commentary. The X-Men have always been about more than superpowers. They're a metaphor for prejudice, fear, and the struggle for acceptance. But DeMayo believed that message needed updating. He said in multiple interviews and posts that social acceptance in the modern world is more complicated than it was decades ago. The lines aren't as clear, the conflicts aren't as simple, and that complexity, in his view, made X-Men 97 the perfect platform for deeper, more uncomfortable conversations. For some fans, that vision is exactly why Season 1 felt so sharp, emotional, and grounded, despite the sci-fi elements. For others, it's where concerns start to creep in. There's a growing segment of the fanbase that worries X-Men 97 could lose its edge without DeMayo steering the ship. The fear isn't just about plot lines being dropped, it's about tone, about whether Marvel will still allow the series to tackle nuanced themes like hatred, bigotry, and moral compromise with the same intensity. DeMayo himself doesn't seem optimistic. He's openly expressed doubt that Marvel will push the show in those more challenging directions going forward, and based on his departure, he believes there's virtually no chance that his Gambit-led space heist storyline will ever happen. At best, it becomes a footnote, what could have been. But here's the other side of the conversation, and it matters. Not everyone believes DeMayo's vision was the right one. Some fans argue that he fundamentally misunderstood certain characters. Others believe that Marvel had legitimate reasons for firing him, reasons we may never fully know. From that perspective, his public posts aren't revelations, they're unfinished ideas that never earned the right to be realized. Interestingly, even some fans who aren't particularly attached to Gambit have said the McCran crystal heist sounded genuinely exciting. That alone suggests the idea had merit, even if the execution remains hypothetical. So the debate isn't black and white. Was DeMayo a bold creative voice who pushed X-Men 97 into meaningful territory? Or was he someone whose approach didn't align with Marvel's long-term plans for the franchise? The answer probably sits somewhere in the middle. What's undeniable is this: X-Men 97 now carries expectations it didn't have before. Season 2 will be the first real test of how the show functions without its original architect. Fans will be watching closely, not just for animation quality or action scenes, but whether the series still feels purposeful. And Gambit, his fate now symbolizes something bigger than one character. He represents the larger questions surrounding X-Men 97. How much of what made Season 1 resonate was tied to Beau DeMayo, and how much of it can survive without him? So let's bring it back to you. Do you think rotating the spotlight away from Wolverine was the right call? Would you have wanted to see Gambit lead a full season centered on the Age of Apocalypse and the McCran Crystal? And do you believe X-Men 97 can maintain its emotional and thematic weight going forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to hear where you land. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more updates, analysis, and Marvel news, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Movie Sentry, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.